Hi everyone! Welcome sa episode 4 ng .NET Core Tutorial Series natin. So, sa episode na to, mag-a-add tayo ng connection sa database, mag-create tayo ng post, and save natin to sa database. And at the same time, gagamit tayo ng basic IConfiguration. So first, make sure na installed yung local SQL server sa computer nyo. So, para ma-check nyo, click nyo yung view. Click nyo yung SQL Server Object Explorer and make sure na meron kayong local DB and MS SQL local DB. So, kung meron, that means installed. Kung wala, try to install your Visual Studio once again. Make sure na kasama yung SQL Server sa pag-install nyo. So, next, kailangan din natin i-run tong command na to sa PowerShell. So, make sure mag-open lang kayo ng PowerShell and type .NET tool install global.dotnet-ef. So, ang purpose na itong command na to is para makagamit tayo ng certain command line command. It's related sa entity framework na gagamitin natin mamaya sa tutorial. So, ililid ko yung command sa description ng video mamaya. So, after nyo ma-install yung or make sure na meron na kayo ng mga kailangan natin, balik tayo sa solution and click on tools, NuGet Package Manager, and manage NuGet Package sa solution for solution. So, since gagamit tayo na SQL Server and Entity Framework, kailangan natin nung package na yun. So, search Entity Framework and install natin yung Microsoft Entity Framework Core. So, click nyo yun. Click nyo yung Simple Web App or kung saang project i-install and click on Install. So, click OK and I accept sa mga pop-ups na lilitaw while installing yung package. After ma-install, make sure install din natin yung SQL Server. So, Microsoft Entity Framework Core X SQL Server. Click on Install. Click on OK. And accept. Next, install din natin yung design. So, click on Install. OK and accept. So, once na ma-install yung mga packages sa project natin, let's continue on adding the database connection. So, first, add tayo ng folder sa project and let's call it data. And under ng data, create tayo ng bagong class. So, let's call this AppDB context. And let's try to inherit DB context. So, galing siya sa Entity Framework Core. So, let's use the namespace Microsoft.Entity Framework Core para hindi mag-error. Next, let's create a new property and call it dbset for post. So, let's name it post. So, purpose nito is gagawa siya ng bagong table. Pangalan is post and kada record dun sa table na yun or kada row sa table na yun is one post or isang post. So, next, punta tayo sa app settings at JSON and mag-add tayo ng key. Let's call it my connection string. And kailangan natin ng connection string. Remember, kailangan natin makakonect sa database natin. So, go back tayo sa SQL Server, yung local DB, MS SQL local DB. Right-click nyo, properties, and on the lower right part ng screen, may makita kayo ditong connection string. para sa SQL Server instance. So, copy nyo lang para mabilis or madalian kayo sa buhay. And add tayo ng database. So, pangalanan natin ano magandang name? My database. Okay. So, pangalan ng database is my database. Next is let's go back sa startup. And sa startup, kailangan natin i-inject yung IConfiguration. So, let's create a constructor. And inject natin yung IConfiguration dito. So, IConfiguration config. And, syempre, add natin siya sa field ng config under ng startup. Let's create a field named config. Next is let's register or create a service para sa database natin. So, for that, para magawa yan, is under ng configure services. Remember, sa episode 1 na pinaliwanag natin na dito tayo nagre-register ng mga services. So, dito natin ilalagay si SQL Server. So, add db context. And anong pangalan ng db context natin? That's app db context. So, paste natin. Nag-error kasi di niya pa makita. So, gamitin natin yung namespace ng simple web app data. Next, let's pass an option here. And gamit tayo ng SQL, use SQL Server. There you go. And yung SQL Server, syempre kailangan niya ng connection string. So, para makuha natin connection string, gamitin mo yung config. So, remember, in-inject natin yung IConfiguration. So, yung IConfiguration, it gets, or kinukuha niya lahat nung settings or configuration file nung app mo. So, pwedeng from app settings.json, pwedeng from global.json, pwedeng from yung mga secrets, or pwede rin sa launch settings.json. So, mapupunta yan dyan sa iConfiguration and pwede na nating ma-access yung config or whatever settings na nilagay natin doon. So, lagay mo yung iConfig and let's use kung ano pangalan nung key. So, ang pangalan ng key is my connection string. So, config my connection string. So, kinagamit natin yung value na to para sa SQL Server, para maging connection string nung SQL Server. Next, let's go back sa app db context and let's create a constructor here. And since sa startup, meron tayong pinapasang options, so let's inject an options 2. So, options. And, pasa natin siya sa base class, which is yung db context. So, pasa natin yung options dun sa base class. So, after kapasa sa base class, remember, nag-i-inherit tayo. Ito yung db context. So, kaya tayo may base dito is, since ini-inherit natin tong class na to, yung constructor nung class, which is nung constructor nung base class, pinapasa din natin yung options doon. So, mostly this is under ng inheritance. So, maybe that's for another topic. Next, let's go back dun sa post natin and let's create another property called ID. So, ang purpose na itong ID is para lang ma-identify. So, Remember, merong, let's say, sa mga barcode or parang unique identifier like 001. Etong pangalawang post, si 002, pangatlong post, 003, and so on and so forth. So, same way or same, same lang yung nangyayari dito sa ID na to, nung post. Next, after ma-setup lahat, kailangan na natin mag-migrate. So, kaya na natin i-update yung database natin. So, let's go back sa desktop. Go back sa tutorial series. And let's open a PowerShell here. So, para mag-open ng PowerShell, hit Shift, hold down Shift, and right-click, and click on Open PowerShell window here. So, next, type nyo dotnet-ef migrations add init. So, ang purpose nito is para gumawa ng migration from, let's say, nothing into something. Kasi remember, wala pa tayong database, wala pa tayong ginagawa. So, ang gagawin nito is gagawa siya ng migration. Oops, nag-fail yung pag-create or pag-add ng migration. I think it's related to my settings ng Visual Studio. So, usually, I just need to restart Visual Studio. So, let me just open it once again. Let's check kung nag-add siya ng folder for migration. Wala. So, let's keep it a couple of seconds. Clear muna natin to. Let me close this one. So, let's try again. .NET-ef migrations add init. So, that's short for like initialize. And, oh, wala akong ID. Ba't wala yung ID dito? So, let me just save it. Double check ko kung na-save ba. Save. Okay, everything's here. So, execute yung command. Let's wait for the migration to happen. Build started. So, yeah, nag-succeed na. So, earlier kaya nag-error, I'm not sure what's happening, pero yung Visual Studio ko kasi, for some reason, nagpa-bug yung entity framework. So, I'll try to check nagkakos sa Visual Studio ko. So, kailangan ko pang like i-relaunch yung project. Next, after ma-add yung migration, makikita nyo meron ng folder ditong migrations. So, wala naman tayong kailangan pansinin dyan or check dyan. Usually, some configuration or update lang sa schema nung database natin yan. So, we don't have to worry about it. Next is, kailangan na nating update yung database. So, .NET ef database update. So, this will update or will actually create yung database sa SQL Server. Kasi remember, wala pa siya talaga. So, dito sa migration na to, ginagawa niya is ini-initialize niya. So, let's wait for this to finish. And it's done. Let's go back sa SQL Server natin. Check natin kung na-create yung database. Oh, okay, there you go. So, papansin nyo, meron na tayong database called my database. And check natin yung tables. Kung meron siyang table for post. So, it's still loading. Keep it. And there you go, meron ng post. Itong post. Check natin kung may laman. So, view, right-click, view data. Check natin kung may laman. As you can see, walang laman kasi ka-create lang naman nung database. Next is let's try to add a code para mag-create ng post and i-save sa database. So, let's go back sa home controller and sa post or sa create action. Let's mag-create pala muna tayo ng constructor here. So, kailangan natin inject yung database context natin. So, db context. So, db context equals db context. And create a field. Oops. Let's create field here. There you go. So, what happened here is we are ini-inject natin yung service dito sa controller na to. Remember, register natin siya dito sa configure services and it can be used sa buong application natin. Basta i-inject lang natin siya sa constructor, let's say dun sa controller, since gagamitin natin siya sa controller. So, since meron na tayo ng db context dot add post. So, yung db context meron tayong post. So, dun sa table ng post, mag-add tayo ng bagong post. So, remember, itong action na to, nag-accept siya ng post na object. Ito yung galing sa user. So, nag-type siya ng like title, pati ng content. So, nag-type siya. Then, pag-click niya yung submit, ito yung na-execute na action. So, meron ka na nung post, meron ka na nung title, meron ka na rin nung description or nung content. Next is we have to make sure na this is async. Modify natin siya na async and this is a task that return an action result. So, next is db context that save changes async. So, of course, kailangan natin ng await. So, bakit may await? Anong purpose ng await? So, remember, noong sinubmit yung post, a-add natin siya sa database. So, ang purpose nito is, since ang magtatrabaho is database or may, ang kikilos is yung database. Parang ibibigay muna natin tong thread na to sa maybe, bitawan muna natin tong thread na to since kesa naman antayin kung matapos mag-save sa database. Let's just wait for it to finish. Bigay muna natin tong thread na to and do something else. Ganun yung concept nung async and await. So, that's it. This should save the post now. And let's try to run. So let's give it a couple of seconds. Blah blah blah. Dun, dun, dun. There you go. And punta tayo sa create. O, lagyan natin ng title. My very first blog post. And content. Blah, blah, blah. Since hindi naman nakailangan natin na value dyan. So, I'll click submit. So, there you go. Ni-redirect na tayo sa post. So, that means na-save na yung post. So, refresh natin yung database. Right-click and refresh. Let's check kung na-save ba talaga. So, balik tayo sa tables. Check natin yung post kung nandun yung data. And right-click nyo and view data and there you go. So, my very first blog post and yung content na blah 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 blah. So, I think that's it for our episode 4. So, sa next episode, mag-a-add na tayo ng pag-manage ng post like editing and pag-view nung lahat ng post para mapakita dun sa mga users. And if you have any questions, just leave it below sa video, leave a comment, hit subscribe, and click the bell icon para ma-notify kayo sa new videos and tutorials. So, see you next episode. Bye, Doys.